they support with a scholarship to study in master programs. After the got a MA, Wesley has some choice. He chose to stay in Oxford to study and teaching. Also, he can be a priest, so local church. In 1728, John Wesley ordained as an elder. Now he can be a local pastor. But his father, Samuel Wesley, want John Wesley to help his ministry in effort. So John Wesley went back to his home and helped his father. Those times, the assistant pastor called the curator, like the curator in the library. There's the assistant pastor. So John Wesley worked with his father. I'm not quite sure, but they're using the curator and the rector. I'm sure rector is some senior pastor, but curator is some assistant pastor. So John Wesley worked as a curator to help his father, Evers. That's 1728, after he ordained as an elder. And 1729, Samuel Wesley asked John to visit Oxford to take care of the Charles, because Charles was a student at Oxford, same college, Christ Church. And then Samuel Wesley worried about the youngest son, so asked John to go back to Oxford and then ask what thing you need as a student, undergraduate students, and then how Charles is doing in college life. So I guess it's the spring of 1729. John visited the Oxford and then just to figure out how his younger brother is working. But John and Charles was unhappy about that happening, because usually the younger brother easily ignore the elder brother's advice, or they know, don't worry about me, I'm working well, I know myself, I can take care of everything, something like that. So don't worry about that. But John Wesley don't happy about that response. So they have some kind of argue between the brothers, just like the ordinary brothers to the when they are growing up. So that was in the spring of 1729, and then in the summer, Charles was on vacation and then came back to their hometown, Evers. And then when John met Charles, that time Charles said, after we are on happy break at Oxford, I got some kind of regrets, and then I started some point. So I just gathered together a couple of my colleagues, and then we start to study and then making some special group to read the Bible, to pray together. But Charles said, we are just undergraduate, so we don't know how to, this meeting is going on, so John, can you join us and then teach us and guide us for this meeting? When John heard that kind of news, something happened in Oxford, so he was happy. So he was happy to accept that suggestion. So John back to Oxford in the fall, November 1729. So John back to the Oxford to help his brother and then some students in spiritual growth. So they gathered together after the November. John was back to Oxford to help this group. This is just a couple of students, maybe 2 or 3 students gather together in the classroom or some spot in a college. They call themselves some kind of holy. They trying to be holy in holiness and holy club, something like that. But it's not an official name. But they have their own this kind of small meetings. They started just a small meetings. But the other students, some and some, they recognize these meetings. John and Charles, 2 brothers, started some meetings. They're getting together to pray together, read the Bible, and then read some religious books, like the Thomas Catholic. They said they are a little bit unusual, but they recognize this meeting. So they, for a while, they just criticized this meeting. It's too obvious, too much anyway, too much focusing on they share the times and then sometimes they fasting together. That kind of thing. Also, they like to attend the sacrament. The John Wesley like the participating in the sacrament. That means the Lord's Supper almost every Sunday. And somebody counted how many times John Wesley joined the Lord's Supper every Sunday. And then during the Lent, he attended every day, 40 days. Also the Advent, so he attended the Lord's Supper. That means that every 5 days, John Wesley attended the Lord's Supper. So it's very interesting. John Wesley very strict rules to join, participate in the sacrament. And then somebody using a word, Methodist, to describe this meeting. That's a very negative meaning. Methodist very negatively describe this small group. John and Charles, Delamont, Clayton. I guess it's 4 or 5 members together. The Methodist means, the method, right? Methodist. So, method means to complete, to follow, to pursue what the Bible says. Just follow the method the Bible tells to save their souls. This method means strict to some kind of rules. That's the method this means. The very negative meaning. And first time they are very hurt by this kind of criticism by their colleague members at Oxford. But later on, John Wesley thinking about the word Methodist, and then he searching this word in the Oxford dictionaries and in the library. And later, he found it's exactly the right title for our meeting. So sometimes they are too eagerness to participate in the sacraments, also the Bible month. Every time they get together, they read the Bible. So they talk about the Bible. They call the Bible month. But Methodist, John Wesley himself find that this is very exactly the meaning of the describe or define this small meaning. Yeah, this is the picture. But people said it's too many students there. Maybe exactly 2 or 3 students. But you saw this picture somewhere in some universities in Wesleyan tradition. But some students they go to meetings, but they don't like the kind of meetings. they ignore the meetings. I guess John and Charles together. Yeah. This is not the fact. It's just the 2 or 3 that are together. Anyway, John and Charles was there. Also, the Bible book. Yes, yes. You have a question?
Yeah. You told that he has only coined the word Methodist, John Wesley, and he tried to relate that with Bible.
Regular.
Yeah. Directly or indirectly, or he trying to quote anything passage. He trying to quote any verse for this word.
Bible verse? Methodist? No. It's any kind of Bible. But the Methodist is some
blindly those who believe.
traditional.
Yeah, tradition.
Traditional. Methodist means just the people who stick to the
Strictly follow the.
rules of the Bible. That's just the meaning. It's not the biblical. Yeah.
Later he named it for the church, Methodist.
Methodist?
Later, maybe he
You mean the Methodist church?
Yeah, who named Methodist? Then
For
No,
criticism.
nobody knows.
Nobody.
Yeah, that's the criticism. Criticize
Yeah.
the others
Criticize.
against this group.
Right.
It's not a members. It's not constant members.
But it is told that John Wesley is the founder of Methodist Church.
Yeah. But this is not a church. This is just a small group. Yeah, small group. Later on, they called the Methodist Society.
Okay.
And then Methodist Society developed into the Methodist Church later. But this is not the church. This is the Methodist. It's just a small group. But the word coming out of their outside of these meetings. So this is a very negative meaning. Also, homo unius libri means a man of one group. They talking about the Bible every time. Even they reading the Bible. Yeah.
On the way.
Yeah. So those are Methodists. Stick to the reading the Bible. Stick to the pray regularly. Stick to that kinds of rules the Bible talks about. So that's the meaning of the Methodist.
Is there any connection between Greek word Methodist and Methodist?
Greek word.
Yeah.
Method. Yeah. I'm gonna talking about. Yeah. And then Wesley searched for the Methodist word in the dictionary, the big dictionary in Oxford. I heard of the Bible. He found.
Actually, his Methodist word is for using communist.
Communist?
Yeah, communist.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. The communist.
No, other than that
You are asking
particular Methodist, other than that.
The word, na?
The word is used by somebody else for something. Word Methodist is used by someone for some other purpose.
Yeah. Traditionally, usually practically this Methodist defines the best various methods from the Bible, reading the Bible, visiting the prison, the prayer regularly. Because somebody also in a church history, the Methodists using some negative meanings. So some people criticized this John Charles meaning the new type of Puritans. Puritan is a we like Puritans, but Puritans negative they includes some kind of legalistic person people. So that kind of things the Puritans. They emphasize the law. They emphasize the covenant. And so the Puritans has the theology of covenant. That means not one-sided love from the God. The human also have their part for this covenant. That's the Puritan's idea. So many Puritans emphasize the law, also the regulations. So somebody criticized the Puritans as a legalism. legalistic. So new type of Puritan means this Methodist, John and Charles, is trying to making some rules or things like that. So they criticize as a kind of
It was criticized by Christians only. Criticized by Christians.
criticize.
Yeah, it is not the
Not that. All the Christians.
people of other faith.
No,
They are
no.
criticized by Christians itself.
Yeah, right.
No,
Christians
actually,
criticize.
in England, everyone is Christian. In England, everyone is
Yeah, right.
Christian, so there is no non-Christian.
Also, he found another usage of the Methodist in Roman. In the medical history, the Roman physicians, some group of physicians give some diagnosis to their patient, just following, just to keep your body balanced. Regular jogging is good, regular fresh air is good. So making the regulation, every 3 days, you said 3 days a week, jogging?
Yes.
Yeah, just like that. These are some kinds of Roman physicians, Methodist, yeah, he followed. That kind of Methodist means they called special group of the Roman physicians, they diagnose that kind of thing to their patients. So some regulations for the health.
What is the difference between new purity and old purity?
The old Puritans are, like I said, the Puritans are some kind of legalistic side, and then Methodist has just like the Puritans. So they call their old Puritans. You are the new Puritans. That means.
John Wesley's mother, Susanna was
Old,
she
yes,
was,
yeah, you have some Puritan
old.
tradition. Yeah, right. So, yeah, the one who study and practice regularly, that's some kind of a way to keep the body healthy. That's the Roman style, the medical meaning of the Methodist. And then John Wesley found some theological ideas of Methodist too. This is a very negative meaning among the Reformation. Old method and the new method. That's Reformation said, the Luther, Calvin, the continental Europe reformers focusing on the faith only, right? That's the only condition for the salvation. Faith only. That's the old method. They said, because Bible said only faith can be saved by through the God's grace. So old method is only faith. Sola fide. That's the old method. But somebody said, no, you have to do some more, not just the faith. You have to do some more. That, in the case, they criticize, it's a new method. Old method is good. Old method is enough. Why you're talking about another method? So it's when they're dealing with the word Methodist, the new method is some negative meaning. Not just the sola fide. You need some more. But John Wesley is in preaching sola fide and changing your life toward to do some more, not justification. Go on growth in grace toward to the another level. So it looks like the new method. So John Wesley said, maybe it's right, not just John Wesley believe and then follow sola fide, but not stop there. He's talking about more, not justification, but also sanctification. Just like he found his goal is not just following regular reformers. He said much more, because justification and regeneration is just a starting point. We have to grow in grace. So that's the holiness. John Darley and then actually the Catholic, the Reformers' criticism against the Catholic teaching. Catholic just looks like a Catholic, so sometimes Methodist was charged as the Papist or the Catholic sorts. But Wesley didn't like that, but he wanted to talk about more than just like Reformers. Some Armenian also, Arminius was charged as a Methodist because he studied on the predestination, and then later he found the predestination doctrine has a big problem. So later the Calvinists gathered together and Dort, right? The Holland, and then they decide the Arminius, Jacobus Arminius is a heretic. So that kind of things. But John Wesley didn't agree with that decision because it's just among the Calvinist ideas. The Universal Church not follow the decision of the Dortmund. So anyway, the Arminian view was also charged as a Methodist. Anglicans, the ones who emphasize holiness after justification. I'm quite sure this is the Wesley's model, not just the justification, but we need holiness after justification. So also, you know, the Puritan, Richard Baxter, necessity for human participation for salvation, not just one-sided God's grace. We have to participate in God's providence. So when John Wesley studying all these kind of things, Wesley decided Methodist is right, our way. So just focusing on the holiness after justification. Many reformers, Luther, Calvin, Zwingli, they just focusing on the justification, but John Wesley said, no, not just the justification. We need the holiness after justification. So in that sense, John Wesley decided to gather challenge they or he as a Methodist. So Wesley picked the word Methodist to describe the small groups. But later on, it's a Methodist becoming a church denomination. But the Methodist means stick toward the rules or the teachings, what the Bible tells. The Methodist means the strictness. Once he picked the name Methodist for their group, this group was getting a set of new connections and then getting bigger and bigger. Charles Wesley is one of the Methodists. You have the book, we have the book, 3 books? Just one book, yeah. About Charles Wesley. Charles Wesley, the first Methodist, is the title. So, like I said, who was the first to make this meeting? Charles or John? Charles gathered together first, or John? Charles.
Charles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Meant for help.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But yeah, it's very good question. Charles was the really first Methodist. That's the some people can make a question. Yeah, the book title is Charles Wesley, the first Methodist. But this book is dealing with the discussion. Really Charles was the first Methodist or not, whether or not. So this book usually needs a question mark. In this book, the author dealing with there is some barrier, except Charles Wesley as a Methodist or a first Methodist. historically, right, Charles was the first man making this small group happen. But in terms of the Methodist, there is some kind of some harsh, I mean the barrier. First one is it's hard to define Charles Wesley's theology. It's very hard because in the first time, in the first period of the Methodist, Charles Wesley wrote a lot of poems and then hymn verse. But when Charles wrote the poems and the hymns, at the very last stages to publish these poems, John Wesley authorship, making revised all the sentences and the words by word.
Really?
Yeah, John was very strict, and then when he agreed on some expressions and then word, then he kept to the publish. So it's at least the first part of the Methodist. It's hard to figure out which one is Charles' ideas or John's ideas. It's hard to figure out. But we can say it's John's idea because he is the last one. He revised all the verses. So yeah, it's a material. We have some material problem. Later on, I'm quite sure Charles Wesley wrote. Somebody said more than 6,000 hymns or 9,000, more than 9,000. So it's coming of an unpublished poems is published now, 1 to 3, I guess. You know the John Tyson? John Tyson is a Duke graduate. He was a prominent scholar about Charles Wesley. He wrote a dissertation. 8 pages more than 1,000 pages for the dissertation. That's some imagery of the blood, the redemptive blood in Charles Wesley's poem. So I read his dissertation. So I talked with my professor. Oh, it's too long. But my professor remembered the John Tyson. The original copy was more than 3,000, but she shrinked to 1,000. But so many colleagues they ridiculed the volume of the dissertation. It's some, it's not sharp, too many pages. But later on, John Tyson working on Charles Wesley again and again. And then John Tyson is the prominent figure about Charles Wesley stuff. So when you study one Charles Wesley, John Tyson is the one you have to read. Charles Wesley, the reader, even his sanctification. Second one is, another problem is, Methodist has some kind of experience. They criticized by the authority of the Church of England. They also have to decide very important things to do, what to do, and where to do. Even talking about the lay preachers is a big issue in Charles and John. According to the Charles and John, the lay preachers issues, John Wesley anyway picked this way. The lay preachers can help spread the God's gospel around England. But Charles didn't agree with the lay people because lay preachers, they were not trained well. So maybe they made some kind of scandals around England. So we needed to train the lay preachers, not get set them with their just passions. We have to train them. So they have a disagreement between John and Charles. Something like that we did issue. Also against how about the Church of England? We have to get out of the Church of England, or we have to stay in the Church of England. That kind of issues, just on and on. But Charles and John sometimes disagree some issues. And the scholars follow very important point or the time. Charles was not there. That means Charles was some kind, when they found, Charles found some disagreement with his brother, John, he just go away. That's the Charles style. Just go away. You can do that. I don't go to with you. I'm just leave. So that's the Charles style. So it's a hard. When the very important time, when or where or how to the Methodists do, Charles Wesley was not there. Charles Wesley absent for that decision. So it's really Methodist. The third one is also the about the sanctification. John and Charles agreed about the status of the holiness. Charles Wesley using the points. So the points is jumping ideas and jumping. So Charles Wesley's idea of the holiness is much more higher than the John Wesley describes. So maybe it's some good Christians to study on, but some scholars say Charles Wesley was focusing on the holiness much more higher than his brother John. So maybe there are some different stories about some images of holiness. Anyway, Charles Wesley was some kind of study. Charles Wesley was a blue ocean. I think studying John Wesley was so many scholars and so many pastors know about John Wesley well. So nothing special for the John Wesley, but Charles Wesley was new. They were here, so Charles Wesley. Also, when I wrote about the Charles Wesley, I found Charles Wesley wrote hymns with the composer Handel. You know the Handel, Messiah, composer of the Messiah. Yeah, Handel make some tunes with the Charles hymns. Those are at the same time. Handel coming from Germany to England and then settled down in England. Also, Charles was not a composer. He just would make a verse, but he's a son as a composer and then some organist. When you listen to your pastor's sermon, it's hard to remember. Can you remember the title or Bible verse of last Sunday that your pastor was talking about? Just anecdotes, not.
I remember it was John 3:16.
Wow.
That stands out though, right? That's pretty simple.
It's syndicate.
What was the name of it?
Single church?
Yes.
Wow.
The 16th topic was the purpose.
Wow.
Short sermon.
Yeah, short sermon. That's the reason.
Very short sermon.
The Reverend Yun, he was our student. He was here.
English service, we attended English service.
In India, they preach 2 hours. 1 hour.
So, but Charles Wesley is a hymn. Sometimes he using the same tunes, the things from some not just hymns, tunes coming from the popular
From
song.
pubs.
Pops. Yeah. He changed the verse according to his verse, but he using the tune coming from the drinkers songs, the pop, it's the popular songs. So it is very popular. So somebody said the preaching of the Methodist going 1 mile, while the hymn 10 miles. So the hymn is much more stronger and powerful to remember and then emphasize what was going on in these meetings. So I'm quite sure this is a kind of when we talk about revivalism, we also think about the hymn also. CCM, just like that. When I checked with the undergraduate, my students, the Department of Theology, we checked their personal statement. You know, we have a 51 admission for the students. Almost half of the who applied for the Department of Theology, they got a special feeling, a special experience while they attend the retreat meeting on junior high, mostly in the first grade of high school. And then they want to be a leader of the CCM. So they apply to the Department of Theology. They want to be a leader of the band. So when faculty members are confused, wow, they don't want to study theology. They just want to be a band leader.
Musicians.
But it's important though. They have that kind of things. Really, the revival meeting or the retreat meeting. But during they are singing the songs, singing the hymns, they changed. They got a lot of experiences. So when we talk about Charles Wesley, please remember we have this kind of the side of the beauty, aesthetic, the beauty, the aesthetic, right? Aesthetic, the beauty. So we have an aspect of the beauty. So it's good to study the songs and the hymns. You know who is it? You can recognize George Whitfield. George Whitfield graduated of Pembroke College at Oxford. He joined the Methodist later. Like in Yale University, the historian Harry Stout wrote a good book about George Whitfield. The title is Divine Dramatics. The title is. According to this book, George Whitfield lived in a poor house. I mean, they're poor. They were poor family. Their parents managed the inn, not a hotel. It's a very tiny house inn, not a motel. Just the inn. George Whitfield saw every kind of guest. The soldiers, the pastors, or every detail. He recognized every people according to their the occupations and then their lifestyle. later on, George Whitfield is very good at describing the people. So it is very good to his career later. Pembroke students means not just accept their ability. It's a work study, some that kind of programs. Work means, you know, the Oxford has a lot of noble children. So some students coming from the noble family, they need some kind of a servant to take care of this student while they're studying in Oxford. So their family hired the servant for the students, the kids. This servant take care of the food, the clothes, just like the secretary, and then even like the classroom, they join the classroom. They study together. So George Whitfield studied as a servant with his master, and he studied at Oxford. The Pembroke College has give them that kind of chance to the poor but prominent students. So George Whitfield has a really from the poorhouse to the Oxford, and then joined the Methodist. Later on, George Whitfield traveled America. That's I have the picture. You don't have a, oh. Old one. I get actually updated pictures of, because, have you heard about the Gulf Stream? Gulf Stream? The England is here, America is here. Yeah. The current, the way of the sea, is equator is here. So it's water is hot here, and then the water coming this way. There's a Gulf Stream. They call the Gulf Stream.
Gulf Stream, yeah.
So that makes it's hard to coming England to America. It's the other way. But so that's the reason John Wesley was worried about. He was some trouble on the ship. But George Whitfield crossed the Atlantic Ocean 13 times. You know, those times they spent almost 3 months to cross over the Atlantic Ocean. 2 and 3 months. That's the regular time take the cross the Atlantic Ocean. That 13 times means George Whitfield crossed to the America. That's the first. And the second, back to England. Then again, third, and the fourth. So where George Whitfield died then? 13 times means here or here?
Here.
Here? Here? England? 13 times. Plus the Atlantic Ocean 13 times.
Maybe in middle he may be.
Yeah, that's the odd number, even number, odd number, even number, right? 13 is an odd number. So he died at America.
Yeah, missed.
And then from the first time he went to America, he was a lot of audiences to hear from the the field preaching. The Harry Stout, the scholar, said half of the population of America listen to the George Whitfield's preaching. Half of the population. Usually those times population is northeastern part. They gather together. That's just the setting period. They call the colonial era. But anyway, more than half population of the America try to listen and then really listen to George Whitfield preaching. When the George Whitfield the preaching, when he described the pain of the hell, the fire of the hell, he talking about the fire of the hell. Many people crying and convert. It's a very powerful speaker. Sometimes he talk about just Mesopotamia, just Meso, and then people crying. And I got that kind of power. Yeah. Anyway, later on, George Whitfield died in America. And then his body buried under the Presbyterian Church later in New England somewhere. And then, you know, in Europe also too. America has they have a viewing service, but it's very unfamiliar, unusual in Korea. We only the family members can see the dead body. We just keep away from the other people. But you know, in the movie, they have a viewing service. So they see, well, sometimes somebody touch the body, they cut the hairs to keep some kind of fetishism is there. Yeah, it happened. Somebody, or somebody can give a gift to the dead body.
Sometimes people kiss the dead body.
Right.
That is very
And then later on, the body is getting just a mummy, just like the mummy later on. Some people said to try get the power, just like the George Whitfield. So they touch it, the dead body, George Whitfield's dead body. Somebody to take the skull and then put down back. I saw the one article, newspaper article. Please send back some part of the bone of the George Whitfield. Somebody, that means somebody took some bones from the body of the George Whitfield because he wanted power. That kind of
Powerful man.
yeah, that's just some kind of fetishism.
Yeah.
You know, where I study my PhD program, Drew has some collection. They have the archives in United Methodist, but they have a special collection of the George Whitfield. Someday, one day, George Whitfield's son. It's coming the auction. And Drew bought the George Whitfield's son. Nobody knows this. So you can see the George Whitfield's son in the archives. Yeah.
But still in India,
Mm.
Francis Xavier's body is
Right.
Yeah.
I know. Just like that. Yeah. Anyway, Drew Archives bought this son, George Whitfield's son. So you can see the George Whitfield's son.
You
in
have
the
like
archives.
in Goa, they sell these photos of their hands, legs, and face. The people they consider sacred,
Yeah.
and then they worship something.
Do you have like that in Korea?
lyrics. But in
But,
Korea,
yeah, when I was a PhD student over here, I worked in the archives, and then a special day, I think it's what is it, October 31st. Halloween.
Halloween.
My professor wants to special collection for the archive, the exhibition. I read the articles, like that time. He prepared some news articles about bring back the George Whippier's own, something like that. This is the very things. But the very last part was moving his song, the George Whippier's song, from here to there. But I cannot touch the I moving everything, just the song. So my professor came back and then asked me, why didn't you move his song from here to there? I said, oh, I don't like touching.
Because I'll get power.
That time my professor took the song and then threw to me. So I just got the song. Yeah. It's just like the stone, right? So it's the dried one. So this I moved to the different place. Yeah.
By force, you moved.
Maybe I got the power.
You have the power.
Yeah. If I were if I became the pastor, maybe 3,000 or more than 1 million people get together, my congregation. But I picked the side. So.
In Korea, you won't allow to see dead bodies?
No.
Oh.
Just the family members, the rest is here.
Okay.
Not all. No public.
No.
Oh.
You will bring to church?
Will they bring to church?
Oh.
Just the family members. See
Okay.
the rest. Then they just seal the
Then how you take one place to another place for a burial ground?
Oh, but they're using the coffin.
Coffin box.
Out of family people they can carry or not?
Family members or just close friends.
Okay.
Will neighbors will gather or not for funeral service?
Funeral service?
Yeah.
Sometimes we using the cremated or the buried, but not open. Yeah, 1733, we have another sermon. The scripture reading in Romans 2:29. I already mentioned yesterday, right? January 1st. The circumcision of the heart is different from the physical circumcision. That means the holiness, the circumcision of the heart, holiness. Being cleansed from